Good afternoon, Malacañang Press Corps. Welcome sa regular press briefing ni Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque. Welcome back, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good news first, because it's Good News Monday. There's increased minimum wage for kasambahays in NCR, an increase of 1,000 pesos in the minimum wage for kasambahay or domestic helpers in the NCR was approved by the Regional Tripartite Wages and Productivity Board last month as immediate relief measure to manage the rising cost of living. From 2,500, kasambahays will soon be able to receive a minimum wage rate of 3,500. Under the wage order, the wage hike is applicable to all domestic workers, whether in live-in or live-out arrangement, including general house help, yaya, cook, gardener, laundry person, or any person who regularly performs domestic work in one household on an occupational basis. Further good news, the Fitch rating upgrade. We are pleased with the Fitch ratings upgrade of the Philippines' long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to BBB from BBB negative. The global leader in credit ratings and research likewise made its forecast that the Philippines will have real GDP growth of 6.8 in 2018 and 2019 due to expected higher infrastructure spending. Our stable outlook comes after the country's strong and consistent macroeconomic performance, sound policies which support high and sustainable growth rates, and strong investor sentiment due to concrete domestic demand and inflows of foreign direct investment. Fitch also noted that investor confidence remains unaffected, citing that there's evidence so far that incidents of violence associated with administration's campaigns against the illegal drug trade. Now, of course, you have copies already of the letter sent to Congress, so you cannot complain that the House of Representatives beat you to reporting it. So we have the official communication to Congress dated 8 December 2017 asking for further extension of the proclamation of martial law and suspension of the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus. The President cited the letter of Secretary of National Defense Delfin Lorenzana as martial law administrator, stating that based on current security assessments made by the Chief of Staff, Armed Forces of the Philippines, recommending the extension of martial law for another 12 months or 1 year beginning 1st of January 2018 until 31 December, covering the whole island of Mindanao primarily to ensure total eradication of Daesh-inspired Dawatul Ismaiya Waliyatul Masrik, other like-minded local foreign terrorist groups and armed lawless violent groups and communist terrorists and their coddlers, supporters, and financiers. We're hopeful that Congress would see the need for further extension of martial law, as explained in PRRD's official communication, to finally put an end to the ongoing rebellion in Mindanao. Public safety, after all, is our primordial concern. We must unite against these evil forces. So you have a copy of the letter, which I believe had already been received by Congress this afternoon. Now, just to set the record straight, because there are ongoing fake news that I personally oppose Secretary Obial because she opposed the dengue vaccine. I have with me the video of my testimony in the Commission on Appointments. I oppose the nomination of Secretary Obial because of her flip-flop on at least two issues. On the Zika virus, she started by saying we didn't have it, admitted we had it. She said it was not endemic, and then information came out that as early as the 1930s, we knew that Zika was endemic in the Philippines, which affected the proposed response, which then was a 500 million budget for the Bureau of Quarantine, which I believe went to waste because Zika being endemic, the solution is still to have cleaner neighborhoods. On the issue of dengue, she flip-flopped twice on this issue. She started out by attempting to stop it, then she implemented, she attempted to stop it, then she implemented. I have actually the videos of Secretary Obial saying it was safe, and the video of my opposition to her in the Commission on Appointments. I said clearly that my basis for opposition was her flip-flops. We expected, or we have a right to expect from the Department of Health, that she will tell the people if dengue vaccine was safe or unsafe, but she can't say both depending on who is asking. Fake news circulating is that I oppose Obial because I wanted the dengue vaccine implemented, which is wrong because the truth of the matter was, number one, I was in opposition to influence, and number two, I did not like that she did not know that whether or not the dengue vaccine was safe or unsafe. Just for the record, because I've seen for myself fake news on the internet. So are there further questions?
MPC question, Joseph Morong. Microphone. Hannah, please. Thank you.
Sir, in the letter of the President to Congress, he outlined some of the reasons, no? I think there are probably at least 3 or 4 groups, terrorist groups, plus the CPP NPA. But outside, excluding CPP NPA, was the martial law effective in combating the first 4 groups of terrorist groups, like the Daesh-inspired group, and then?
I think the martial law was largely responsible for the fact that we liberated the city of Marawi. Having said that, the information on the ground is that at least 5 groups continue to operate, and although there's been cessation of shootings in Marawi, the President has always said that the recruitment of Maute continues and that they expect fighting again in some other area. No? And that is why he has requested for extension of martial law. Again, the groups mentioned by the President for basis for extending martial law is because the following groups are still on the act of committing acts of rebellion: Hapilon Maute Group, Turaife Group, Bangsamoro, Islamic Freedom Fighters, remnants of Abu Sayyaf, and Daesh-inspired DIWM and other local terrorist groups, including, of course, the New People's Army, which is waging a rebellion which, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, is the longest ever in human history.
Sir, isn't the President considering the problem just the security law enforcement problem, such that we really don't need martial law for it?
Well, actually, this was a recommendation of the administrator of martial law, General Lorenzana, and we have no basis to question the factual finding of the troops on the ground and our commanders on the ground.
Sir, just one last point on the NPA. This is something new, no? He's including the NPA in that grouping. Now, is the President going to use martial law against the NPA, just for a categorical answer?
Well, for as long as there are acts of rebellion being committed in the island province of Mindanao, yes, he will use the full force of martial law against the NPA as well.
In an operational sense, how is he going to run after the NPA using martial law?
Well, it is an ongoing armed conflict, and I think we know how an ongoing armed conflict is affected. No? Unfortunately, there will be fighting between government forces and the New People's Army.
But, alimbawa, sir, if let's put our perspective as a member of the NPA, should you be worried more because you have done martial law now? And why?
I do not know because I'm not in a position to speak for the NPA.
Yeah, okay.
Perhaps we should ask their spokesperson.
Okay, but they have to commit crimes before you could use the martial law against them.
Well, the act of rebellion is a continuing crime. So for as long as they don't lay down their grounds, they are committing a criminal act.
Would you have like an arrest order like they did in Marawi?
Of course, that goes without saying, no? That the martial law administrator is empowered to order the arrest of individuals, and because the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus is also suspended, then they would have to await the lifting of martial law for judicial remedy.
Okay.
Huh?
Context ng NPA.
Of course,
Okay.
because they were included in the groups engaged in the crime of rebellion, which is the basis for the extension of martial law.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Pia?
Sir, just on the terms, the President said that the martial law extension request is primarily to ensure total eradication of the Daesh-inspired groups and the other groups. Sir, how does the President define total eradication?
Well, we need to ensure that they no longer present a threat, that all acts of rebellion emanating from them had ceased, and that they are not in a position to endanger public security.
So, sir, incapacitated. It's not that all of the members have to be neutralized, killed. It's
Well, I think that's
suppression of
governed
their-
already. That's governed already by international humanitarian law. The military objective is a complete subjugation of the enemy, so much so that they cease to commit the act of rebellion or terrorism.
And sir, how about the inclusion of the NPA? Because we also know that the NPA are present not only in Mindanao but in other parts of the country. Can we expect the President to, based on his reasoning in the letter, expand eventually the coverage of martial law to the whole of the country, given that the NPA are present in other parts?
Well, I will not speculate, but he could have, but he did not. So he only asked for extension of martial law in the island province of Mindanao.
And sir, lastly, he also mentioned that he wants to target the financiers of the communist terrorists. So can we expect, sir, that mining companies who've been paying the revolutionary tax will be also the subject of arrest orders given the previous pronouncements of the president?
There is a special law against financing of terrorist organizations. That is one effect of the declaration and proclamation that the NPA is a terrorist group, although the petition pursuant to the UN's Human Security Act still has to be filed in the Regional Trial Court of Manila, but individuals who will contribute financial resources may be investigated and prosecuted for funding terrorist organizations.
But would it be just to include the mining companies given that they say they're forced to pay this tax?
Let them invoke that as legal defense.
Okay, thank you, P. Raymond Tinasa, on martial law.
Sir, good afternoon. Sir, given malapit na mag-recess yung session ng Congress, so are you still confident na this request of the President will be ultimately granted before the previous extension would expire?
I believe so, because there's talk that Congress will either convene in joint session either on Wednesday or Thursday. So if it's Thursday, then they will have to have a special session.
So lastly, so aside from those previous terrorists in the arrest order from the Department of National Defense, so do we expect that the list would be expanded, including now the NPA members?
That's to be decided by the martial law administrator, and I will inform you if he does,
Thank you, sir.
in fact, do so.
Still on martial law, Rose Novenario.
Ay, sir, good afternoon.
Yes,
Sir,
Rose.
nung unang-unang pagdeklara ng martial law ni Presidente, sabi po niya pinupondohan ng illegal drugs yung terrorism sa Mindanao at actually kasama dun sa may arrest order yung ilang narco-politicians. Bakit po ngayon hindi niya nabanggit yun as reason for the extension of martial law?
Well, he doesn't need to because this is just an extension. The ground basically is there's still acts of rebellion being committed, but I'm sure that these groups are able to conduct the crime of rebellion for as long as they have because of drug financing precisely.
So included po yung, may include pa rin po yung narco-politicians o yung arrest order po ng previous declaration of martial law is in effect pa rin po?
That will still be in effect because it hasn't been lifted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, still on martial law. David, to be followed by Philip, Ace, and Joseph.
Sir, is it clear to the President, based on the letter or the explanation of the SND and AFP chief, kung bakit po 1 year, ano yung mga parameters na kinonsider kung bakit ganito katagal ang magiging, as inihiling na extension po?
Well, I think they want a final period, no, to deal with these acts of rebellion. But then again, even before, we gave ourselves a timeline on when to liberate Marawi, and we failed to actually meet those deadlines. No? So let's just give them the leeway. No? Because after all, as soon as it is extended, it can be cut short if there's no need for it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Philip.
Sir, good afternoon. Senator Drilon is saying that there's no factual basis for extending martial law because there's no actual rebellion in Mindanao after the liberation of Marawi.
Well, we are relying on what the commanders and the troops are saying, and these commanders and troops are on the ground. We're not in a position to second-guess them. In any case, they're free to challenge martial law anew in the Supreme Court, but please note that there's been 2 challenges, and in both instances, the palace has been upheld.
Sir, the Archbishop of Cagayan de Oro, Archbishop Ledesma, is saying that extension is unnecessary because the police and the military can deal with these problems through their normal capacity.
Again, I'm not in a position to substitute the view of the Archbishop in his view in favor of the view made by the military commanders on the ground.
He is also concerned that it might affect the economy of Mindanao if it's going to be a 1-year extension.
So far, it hasn't. No? The economic figures that we have reported, all of which show solid performance of the economy, include, of course, the economy in Mindanao.
Thank you, sir.
Ace.
Secretary, just for the record, why did the President cite the NPA threat in the request to extend martial law?
Because we expect intensified fighting on the part of the NPA. As in fact, they have been exhibiting more intense targeting of our soldiers and civilians after the President had already classified them as their terrorist group.
Okay, so that's what make it different because we all know the NPAs have been there in Mindanao and previous administrations did not see the need to declare martial law in the area.
As in fact, we engaged them in peace talks, and we hoped that in fact there would be eventual peace between the government and the NPA. We were frustrated because, as you know, they never stop attacking soldiers and civilians.
Another question. Does the government already have an idea who this Torafe is or Toraife is, yung Torafe group?
Anyway, we're meeting tomorrow. I'll ask. Okay, we have a press briefing tomorrow anyway.
Thank you,
I
Secretary.
will inquire.
Okay, last three, brief lang. Joseph, Pia, and then Lassie.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, si Congressman Edsel Lagman, in his interview this morning sa ANC, mentioned that the threat that President Duterte was mentioning constitutes imminent danger, something which the 1987 Constitution abolished as a requirement for declaring martial law. Ano pong masasabi niyo dito, sir?
He has filed 2 petitions in the Supreme Court challenging the 2 earlier declarations of martial law. In both instances, his petitions were denied. He's welcome to question this 3rd one, and I'm confident that the government can justify martial law anew in the Supreme Court.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Joseph?
Just on the length, still from Representative Lagman, he said that the extension is contrary to the spirit of the 1987 Constitution as far as martial law is concerned, meaning the Constitution intended to just have it 60 days.
Well, again, that's his view. I'm sure he will question it anew in the Supreme Court, and I'm sure we can defend the government position in the Supreme Court again.
Sir, but 60 days, you don't think it's enough for the President?
Obviously, there was a decision made that it wasn't enough, that they wanted the whole year and needed the whole year.
Okay, thank you. Last question, Celerina. Microphone.
Good afternoon, sir. On another issue, regarding the comfort women, there was this recent unveiling of the statute in Manila of these comfort women. May we know the palace reaction on this? Would this mean that the government is supporting the call of these comfort women, like the apology and financial assistance from the Japanese government?
As far as I know, there's no official position on the issue of comfort women. The fact that the statue was unveiled, well, is a fact. No? It was not stopped by government. So for all intents and purposes, there is a statue allowed to be erected in memory of the comfort women.
Does the government support this move to have this statute?
It does not support, it does not oppose.
What do you
It
think?
has no position currently.
What do you think would be the reaction of Japan, considering that Japan is not recognizing these comfort women here in the Philippines?
What do I think will be their response? Nothing.
Don't you think it would affect somehow the relationship of the two countries?
I don't think so, because the relationship is at record close, if there's such a thing, and I don't think this will in any way affect our very good bilateral relationship with Japan right now.
Okay, thank you, Celerina. Thank you, Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque. Thank you, Malacañang Press Corps. Back to our main studio sa Radyo Pilipinas and People's Television.